This party restored free education to Scotland in our first term. We will protect it in the next. It's part of our Scottish settlement, our social contract with the people. Now, in the course of this coming week, the Scottish Government intends to move forward again with that contract. The cuts that were promised by Alistair Darling, remember, deeper and tougher than those of Margaret Thatcher, are now upon us and under the other Tories. Across the public sector, we face adversity, so let us face it together. As we are duty-bound to do, we decided to protect the health service when Labour didn't know what to do. We have protected local government as best we could because they deliver some of our most vital services. Now, that has meant that the cuts being faced by our own government administration are the most serious of all, 10% this year and 3% each year after that. And yet, this coming week, we are committed to agreeing with our staff unions in the civil service the continuation of our no compulsory redundancy agreement. And that comes with the pay freeze that's inevitable and flexibility in the workforce which is necessary. But the prize in return is great indeed. I believe that such an agreement could and should be extended across the public sector, through local government, through our schools and into our colleges, as well as throughout our health service. It will not be easy, but let me tell you why I think it's important. It's important to individuals to be relieved of economic uncertainty. It's important to have valuable staff properly valued. But it's also important to the wider economy. For 8 months now, thanks to the work of John Swinney, we have had rising employment in Scotland, even in the most difficult of circumstances. For 3 months, we've had falling unemployment, even as it has risen across the rest of the United Kingdom. That is the direct result of our capital acceleration in building houses and stimulating capital projects. In the first 3 quarters of last year, construction employment was up 16% in Scotland, even as it fell across the rest of the United Kingdom. Now the Tories are implementing the savage capital spending cuts which were planned by Labour. We will respond with a £2.5 billion non-profit distribution programme. By moving ahead with the Southern General in Glasgow, a new bridge will span the River Forth, a new road around the city of Aberdeen. However, we will still be under pressure. And one further response is through the economics of security. If people have the fear of compulsory redundancy removed and are able to plan and spend for the future of themselves and their families, that preserves jobs, it helps the wider economy. That is why, as First Minister, I will spend every day securing our agreement with the Scottish Government unions and then seeking to see it expanded across the public sector. As a candidate, I'll campaign for it, and if the people return me as their First Minister, then I shall secure that prize of no compulsory redundancies and economic security, the economic security that that deal would bring. Friends, we have a rich land, but too many of our people live in poverty. We have a 21st century vision, but we're held back by 19th century prejudices and attitudes. We are ready to play our part in the world, to help from the personal to the universal. But if we have become a crucible of the new society, then we need the power of independence. We must have these powers. There's only one way of getting these. There's only one way to secure further advance, and that's to vote for Scotland. Not because we are better than anywhere else, because we are the same people as people all over the world. We seek fairness and justice and responsibility. And we are the lucky nation, able to deliver it all, yet we cannot do it without power. Our sense of the common weal is strong and should not be denied by the rich elites of elsewhere. A Scotland caught between the universality of hope and the parochialism of power for its own sake. And as Labour peddle fear, we have led hope. We live in tough times, but when the decision came to protect family budgets, for us it was straightforward. The council tax freeze stays because it's worth more than £300 to the average family since 2007. The NHS budget could have been cut, but for us it was a clear decision. The health service protects Scots, young and old. Its budget is safe with the Scottish National Party. We have made Scotland secure, not by the knee-jerk nonsense of locking people up for short sentences, but by putting 1,000 extra police on the streets and taking crime to a 32-year low in Scotland. We have the best team in the park. We govern for the whole of Scotland. But politics is nothing without a bigger vision. And government much is in the day-to-day. But you must keep your eye on the horizon, on the big prize. For us, that prize is independence. But independence is a means to an end. The end is a society safe and happy and healthy, confident in its own skin. A global citizen acting to help the world where it can. Because the mapmakers' ink is becoming smudged on every border. Globalism, the rise of the knowledge economy, the big economic changes, the great environmental challenges, all point to a world where the key responsibility of a nation is to raise people who are responsibility to the rest of humanity. And the definition of a nation is a community of people with a shared commitment to their culture and to their children, by having a strong sense of ourselves. It's that sense of ourselves, that sense of Scotland and our communities, that have allowed our new communities from Asia to know what it means to be Scottish, to give them something to join, to be part of. And that sense of self is based on community, on the shared value of helping each other out, lending a hand, on the sense that society should try to be as equal as it possibly can. That's what we value. That's what we think is the whole purpose of government. The rights of the ordinary to triumph over the vested interests. In our capital city of Edinburgh, there stands a monument to Thomas Muir and his fellow friends of the people. His memory should cast a beam over the work of every civil servant in the Scottish Government, indeed every minister, because the monument to Muir and his fellow revolutionaries spikes out from Carlton Graveyard like a shaft of stony light across St Andrew's House. And this monument contains Muir's own vision. I have devoted myself to the cause of the people. It is a good cause. It shall ultimately prevail. It shall finally triumph. And his message was not just for that place or this place, but for every place. For his spirit, for Robert Burns' spirit, for Jimmy Reid's spirit is our spirit. It is for the common weal, the rights of men and women, and the legitimacy of the ordinary over the powerful. This party has travelled a similar path. This movement has been patronised, talked down to, told it wasn't good enough. And yet this party has risen from a few MPs in a land without a parliament to a Scotland with a parliament and an SNP government. We have never lost that strength of hope. We have fought on to triumph. But we, in our mix of the national and the international, the personal and the political, we fought not to govern over people, but for the people to govern over themselves. It is for that reason, and that reason above all, that we are the friends of the people of Scotland, and it is for that reason that we shall prevail.
A standing ovation there for the SNP leader Alex Salmond as he speaks to the cabinet members there. He started off his speech making his thoughts with Japan and emphasising the Scottish connections there. He said that Scotland was a can-do and aspirational country. He spoke of wanting Scotland to be the powerhouse of green energy. He said that much more could be done. He called out to the Chancellor to cut fuel duty. He pointed out that he wanted to create 25,000 new apprenticeships and that he wanted to continue as First Minister with a very strong attack on Labour for not standing up for Scotland. Those were some of the key messages he was putting forward there. He also pointed out that tuition fees would not be imposed. He wanted no compulsory redundancies, and the key message there, the vision that he wanted the power of independence, the prize of independence. There he is speaking to some members in the hall, speaking to him there, SNP delegates, congratulating him on his speech.